Okay, so this is our last week of class, which I feel like, I don't know for all of you, but it feels like for me, this class went by super fast. Okay, so I just want to know how are all of you doing? So you can just use your phone for the QR code, or you can type in the actual number code. And if you're driving or in your car, this link is open for a while, so you can just fill this out later. Hey, Nancy.
Hey.
I'm just checking in with all of you to see how you're doing. So when you have a chance, you can just scan this QR code or go to slido.com and type in this code.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Mandy. How are you?
Good. Thanks for asking.
Good.
So I think all of you have been pretty consistent. We're like a 50-50 split of doing well, but yet equally feeling stressed and overwhelmed. And I just feel like that's really normal, right? Everyone has a lot going on, and it seems like things for this particular group have just like it's been heavy over the past 8 weeks. People are going through stuff. So I think I hope that all of you feel supported by me. And even though this class is over, please know I'm still here to give you advice or help you out if you need anything. Okay, so in my Monday message wrap up, like starting this week, I talked about when you can return your play kit. So if you have a play kit from me, just bring it with you to campus next week when you come to class for your social studies class, and just swing by my office before you go to class. I'll be here probably by 4:30, 4:45. So if you get to campus earlier than that, you can just drop it by my door. And then all work needs to be completed by Friday. Oops. By Friday, June 25th, so this Friday. So you have between now and Friday to turn anything in that you haven't turned in. And then also in that Monday message video, I talked about using course outcome language in your self-assessment. So if you need ideas of how to incorporate the course outcome language when you're writing up that reflection, go back and refer to that link. But otherwise, just look at the directions on LiveText, and I listed the course outcomes, and then I also gave pieces of evidence of things that you've done throughout this class that will demonstrate your proficiency in meeting that course outcome. And just make sure that you're using the Alverno ability language. So communication, coordination, conceptualization, whatever's listed in the LiveText criteria, make sure that you're putting that language in to either I said you could do an oral presentation or a written paper. So just make sure that I want you to get more practice using the Alverno outcome language. Okay, now I just want some quick, like, unmute yourself, give me some feedback on how did that group reading go? So we split up the chapters, and each group was assigned a certain amount of chapters. Do you feel like, I also posted the links to everyone's Google slide that they created, so you can go back and make sure that you review that information. How did that go? Did you do you feel like you still were able to gain all the information from the chapter versus just reading it yourself?
I would have actually preferred to read it, like to have read it myself. I felt like the slides had good information, but without reading it, some of it seemed out of context.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with Allison. But fortunately for me, I read this text in my last class, so I've had that to reference on. So, I mean, but I agree with Allison.
I would say the same. I'm not a good reader, so I don't retain a lot of information when I read. So I'm a slow reader, but I feel like I have to read it, take my time, take my notes, in order to take it all in the way I need to take it in. Even though I don't like reading, I probably need to do it for myself. So yeah.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, so thanks for trying that out with me. It seems like every semester, in the areas of improvement for this course and just other courses in general, is that the reading load is heavy. And it's kind of just the reality of being in a bachelor's level program and coursework. It is just it is a lot of reading and information that you need to take in and process. So thanks for like piloting this strategy to see if it works. It seems like it's mixed reviews, so I'll keep that in the back of my mind for the future. And then just this like popped into my mind as we were just like kind of chatting before class, and people have a lot of things going on, especially those of you that are parents or just taking care of your family members. If this program had a completely online option, would you prefer that? Now, having gone through it for the past over a year, we've been online now. Would you prefer an online option, or are you really looking forward to coming back to campus? Keeping in mind that it is still hybrid. So you're only coming to campus 4 times in 8 weeks. But if there was a completely online option, both synchronously and asynchronously, what would you prefer?
I would do online because my husband's work schedule conflicts with having to go in person. So I have to find a sitter for my daughter. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's only another year. But
yeah. Thank you, Allison.
I also would choose the online option for similar reasons. Just with childcare, it's not even a concern in my mind when we're online, because I know that I can always attend, not,
Yeah.
and it won't be related to the childcare.
Right.
I have to say, we learned so much in class, like being in our school district, that it's such a, hands-on learning. So we're kind of learning what we need to know in class, like with you, Mindy, but then we're taking that and really putting that to use in school with the kiddos that we work with. So I do think the online option is great. And then you're kind of telling us what we need to pick up in the classroom. So I think it's a good option. Mm-hmm.
Is anyone ready to come back to campus?
No, I'm not. And I was kind of surprised that this was happening in person. So, but I'm just going to cross my fingers.
Okay, thanks so much for being honest and giving me that feedback. It really helps, like, thinking about this program overall. And although this is only a small group of your cohort and other cohorts, it's good to know your perspective because you are representative of the other folks in this program. So it's good for me to know that moving forward, and just planning things out for what the rest of this program will look like and what will be offered for future cohorts. So thank you so much. Okay, speaking of the future, so looking into your future courses and teaching practices. So you'll have a final field course placement, which is ED 418. And I know some of you are taking that in the fall. And if you don't take it in the fall, then you'll be taking it in the spring. And I think it's good to think about how, I know we're guests in our mentor teachers' classrooms, right? Or we're coworkers, but it's good to not use the curriculum. So even though we want to make sure that our students are, we need to make sure we're following what our mentor teacher does, right? And we're like honoring whatever is in place in that classroom. It is good just to create a lesson completely from scratch without using the curriculum at all, and just try something completely new in your field courses so that when you get into your own classroom, you can decide what's best for your students, because the curriculum isn't always the best. Although it's given to us, and sometimes we're told that this is what we need to incorporate into the classroom, you're going to be the expert for your learners, and you'll know what's best and what to plan for them. So I think in thinking about that class, that 418, keep that in the back of your mind, that when you're teaching lessons for that course, really to try something new and not just follow the curriculum, so that you can get some practice using the standards and creating just your own lesson. And then also just to incorporate, if you're in early childhood, really try to incorporate play. If you're in middle to upper elementary, think about how you can bring in hands-on learning experiences as much as you're able to, as things start shifting back to somewhat of normal procedures and we don't have so many heavy precautions. Think about how you can incorporate some of those practices so that you get practice facilitating how you want your classroom to be run, right? Like, we don't want our students just to be sitting in their seats doing workbooks. I hope that your time at Alverno has demonstrated that that's not best practice for how students learn. Of course, there's time and place for those activities, but especially in early childhood, we want our students to be doing center rotations and getting up and moving around and having collaborative conversations and sharing materials and singing songs. So keep that in the back of your mind. I am teaching 418 in the fall. So if you're taking it, sorry, you're stuck with me again. And I'm going to be specifically looking for you to really think outside the box and try some new things within reason, of course, and what you're able to do when you're a guest in someone else's classroom. But I think if I could just give you some personal advice from my own experience through education, it's good just to practice those things now. So when you get into the classroom, you can start looking at boxed curriculums with a critical lens and ask yourself, is this really supporting my students? And if it's not, how can I supplement and create my own lessons to better support these students? Does that make sense? And I know it's especially tricky for all of you, because when you're a guest in someone else's classroom, that person is also your coworker, right? And we don't want to be, creating any unprofessional relationships between you and your coworkers. But also, you can always say, this is what's required of me for this course. It's an Alverno requirement. I need to start diving in and practicing some of these concepts and things I'm learning in my classes. I need to start practicing those things. So you can always refer back to your education and what you're learning about. Okay, and then we didn't get a lot of time to talk about important people in the field of early childhood, people that do research, give talks. And these three people are, the first person is someone that is new to me, but she speaks about difficult conversations with early childhood students. So gender, racism, relationships, family structure, and she has a children's book that you should check out. So definitely go to her website and check her out. And then the next person, Angela, she does tons of research in the positive impact of play-based learning. And she has an awesome website called the Play Learning Lab. And then Teacher Tom is a strong voice in the field of early childhood education, and he currently has a early childhood summit that's all virtual going on right now. And so I was listening into some of his speakers, and he's just a a strong voice in the field of early childhood education and how we can incorporate hands-on play-based learning. So definitely go back after class and bookmark these links so you can go back and just be aware of who's doing the work in early childhood education and who is prominent in the research side. Okay, so this is just really casual and informal, but I thought it would be helpful for each different group just to hear about what all of you did for your unit plans. So if one person from each group could just briefly tell us an overview of your unit plan. So maybe like the theme, and then give us a couple hands-on activities that you designed. Any volunteers to go first?
Mandy and I did community helpers for our theme. Trying to find my plan right now. So one of the hands-on activities that I did towards, like, I think it was the last day of the unit plan, was community helper charades for whole group carpet time. So then they're practicing and having fun with it.
Thank you.
I can go next. I was partnered with Tanisha. I don't think she was able to make it tonight, but we chose weather and climate. And one of the fun activities that we did, for week 1, we focused on just like, what is the weather like today? Just, focusing on things that they typically see on an everyday basis. And one of the fun things for the first week that we did were to have a dramatic play with items from different types of weather. So like, we play with coats, gloves, hats, umbrella, raincoats, flip-flops, and water bottles, and had like a little play where they could put on a play with those different items.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
I can go next.
Sorry, Amber, you can go.
Okay, sorry. We did, Nancy and I and Fernanda did environmental science, and one of our first week within our unit, we were talking just about depreciation of Earth and nature and how we need to take care of our Earth. So then some of the activities we designed would be like an outdoor cleanup. So walking around the school with garbage bags and gloves and like finding garbage to pick up, kind of like a community service thing.
Love that.
And then another one I thought would be fun would be an outdoor scavenger hunt. So having pictures of items to find. So maybe it's like a certain type of leaf or acorns or pine cones or rocks or something that we can go around the school building and look for.
Great, thank you.
And then our group, Jen and Crystal and I did math. And so we did where we started learning kindergarten 5s, 10s, and then patterns. And so like with 5s, they did we did the 5 frame, and then we did that as our shoe was like the 5 frame, and then our toes inside were like the dots on the 5 frame, and then they worked up to the 10s and then worked with the 10 frame and then patterns. And so everything kind of had a lot of manipulatives. And then our small groups were like different centers that they bounced to. Unifix, so everything kind of had a lot of different centers after the big lesson, but everything was moving around, using their hands, getting up and doing number lines, counting. So yeah, so that was our.
Thank you. So after doing this unit plan and really just like designing it from scratch, like how did that go for all of you?
I kept going back and changing activities and just like everything within my 2 weeks that I did, because I wanted to make sure I had balance between like exciting activities and calming activities. And I didn't want them to be sitting like very much. I don't know. It's just, I felt like it was hard to find a good balance.
Yeah, that's a good point. And without any students to practice on it, right? Because if you create your own unit plan and you implement the first week and see how it goes, and you're like, oh, this works well for these students and this doesn't, it's kind of hard to do it just hypothetical with no students. But if you had actual students, you could try some things out and see what worked for your students and what didn't, and then make those changes as you go throughout the unit.
I think the one struggle I had was I felt like I could have written down all of the standards, and that was hard to just pick the main ones you were focusing on when I felt like so many of them could have related to the entire week's unit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a good sign. I think that means that you're really like embedding different content areas into one unit plan. If you have concerns about putting in too many, like if they could all apply, I think that's good. It means you have a well-rounded unit plan.
I thought planning it was a lot of fun. It's kind of hard to pick an idea and settle on like how you're going to organize it each week, but once you do, then it's a lot of fun. And then coming up with the activities and the whole group and small group and games, it was fun.
Good. And like, just think about this when you have your own classroom, whether it's kindergarten or another grade level. This is what it looks like when you don't use a curriculum. And not saying that all curriculum is bad. I'm not saying that, but I think it is really good for us to think outside the box and how we can best support all the students in our classroom. Because all students don't fit inside a box, right? We need to think about all these different things that can support student learning. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a choice. I'm going to let all of you decide where we go with the next steps for class tonight. And then I'm just going to open it up if you have any questions. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any experts because all the experts were busy. They're moms too, and they had a lot going on. And so I'm sorry, the expert chat, usually I get positive feedback on that. So I'm so sorry I couldn't get anybody to come and talk to you tonight. But I have taught kindergarten and also first grade, so I'm happy to stay on and if you have any questions about logistical things or things you feel like wasn't covered in the course, I'll stay on after class if you want to just have a conversation with me. But I do want to give you a quick overview of the EdTPA, and then usually what I do is I have the handbook linked up. I split you up into 2 groups and you divide up the handbook and just really dive in and see what the EdTPA is all about, and then present each half of the handbook to each other. But I'm confident that you will look at this handbook on your own. So if you don't feel up to, diving into it tonight, I know we have some people joining via just conference call, and so their ability to participate in group work could be limited. So the groups probably wouldn't really be evenly split up. And it just sounds like I'm sensing that there's some heavy things going on with all of you. And I would be completely fine with just sending you off early. So you don't have to answer yet, but just think about it. So the EdTPA, it's a nationally available performance-based assessment, and it's used during student teaching. So it measures novice teachers' readiness to teach young children, if you're doing the birth to 3rd grade license, and you'll use a different handbook for different licensure. So the assessment focuses on learning principles from research and theory, and it's based on findings that promotes successful teaching practices. So it's the development of knowledge of subject matter, content, subject-specific pedagogy, depending on which handbook you're using, and then how you develop and apply that knowledge to support your students' needs. It also has you incorporate research and theory about what is best practices, like how do students learn best. And then it also has a big reflective and analysis of evidence on the effects of your instruction and the students' learning. So basically what you do is you teach lessons from a unit, a series of lessons, and then you gather data and evidence as to how students learned from your instruction. So you collect assessments and artifacts. So it's a performance-based assessment. It's designed to engage you in demonstrating your understanding of teaching and children's learning in authentic ways. So basically, it takes everything that you've learned at Alverno in this program, and you complete this project during student teaching. And what's don't be intimidated by it, because during student teaching, you do also have student teaching seminar where you meet every week with an instructor that leads student teaching, and then you're also paired up with an Alverno supervisor, and you meet every week, and they help guide you through this process. And also the handbook is just packed full of information and also gives you sample rubrics of how you will be scored. So this happens during student teaching. So we have a couple of options. I'm definitely open to putting you in breakout rooms and having you dive into this handbook, but I'm also being mindful of everyone's unique situations, and also that you're jumping into class again next week with you have no break. So if you would like to have it's 5:30, a little bit of time off tonight, and you can look at this handbook at your leisure, I'm okay with that too. Any thoughts?
I would like to look at it at a later date and get off early.
I think
Same.
I sense that agreement with everyone. I'll also hang out after if anybody just wants to hang out and chat. Okay, so let me get to my last slide. So thank you. It's not easy taking summer classes. It's challenging. You have a lot going on. It was the end of the school year. There was still COVID stuff going on, and you persevered and did amazing in your lessons. Some of you are really out of your comfort zone in early childhood and just really demonstrated flexibility and amazing instructional strategies that I could tell you pulled from your upper elementary or your middle school classrooms and pulled that into early childhood, and I appreciated that. Before you log off Zoom, I do have one thing for you to do. It's this course exit survey. And so I'm just going to stop sharing and put it in the chat. So before you leave, please fill out this survey. It helps me plan for future classes. One sec, I'm just going to grab the link for you. And then I know some of you talked about asked about seeing authentic play practices in the classroom, and those videos are linked up on our Moodle page. And I think you have access to the Moodle page for a while after the class is over. So if you ever want to go back and just refer to those videos, you can. Okay, so